Almighty Father, give us patience and guidance as we do the county's business. Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Need a motion to call for executive session to be held March 1st, 2021 at 9 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Committee or legislative reports. Supervisor Angus?
I attended the LPC meeting for CSA, and, we're kind of in the middle of the session and things are being heard. There is one item that if you want to support, our Representative Leo Biasucci has asked. It's House Bill 2111, and that is the Second Amendment sanctuary state. Like we did it for the county, they want to do it for the state. It's good timing because our president said that he's coming after our guns. So if you want to do that, he has asked that you send letters of support to his email, and that is LBIASIUCCI. That's LBiasucci at azleg.gov. I'll put it up on my Facebook, or you can find him, you can Google him, but please send those letters of support. It went through committee, and now it's going to be heard on the floor tomorrow, so I'm sure we'll hear about that. Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop?
Thank you. I also attended the LPC meeting telephonically for CSA and also the executive board meetings, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Supervisor Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing today.
Supervisor Lingenfelter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, all three of Representative Cobb's bills, 2456, which is fourth priority water, 2595, which is subsequent INAs, and 2679, which has to do with rural management areas, they all failed to get a hearing despite intense lobbying by us, by our lobbyists, and by Representative Cobb herself. So it's obviously unfortunate that Chairman Gil Griffin did not give those bills a hearing. It's just an example of how one person can hinder progress. But we'll be working with Representative Cobb on next steps. Also, next Wednesday, February 24th, we'll be holding the next Wallapai State Parties meeting for the Phase 2 settlement negotiations, and we'll continue to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. County Manager's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. I do have a few items. I'd like to start with a certificate of recognition from the U.S. Census, and it reads, United States Census 2020, thank you. This is the U.S. Census Bureau hereby recognizes Mojave County, Arizona as an invaluable member of the 2020 Census Community Partnership and Engagement Program. We appreciate the effort you made in making the partnership program a success and helping achieve a successful 2020 census. Ms. Becky Fossen, the Kingman Chamber of Commerce Director, as well as our own County Assessor, Jeannie Kinch, were instrumental in attaining this milestone and this achievement. So to them both, thank you for your effort. Thank you for ensuring that Mojave County had a successful census, and I would like to walk over and hand you this certificate of achievement. Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple more items, if I may. I'll continue with them as soon as.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. The other item is related to the emergency rental assistance program. We did, as reported to the board at the last meeting, we did receive an IGA from Arizona Department of Economic Security, which outlined what we shared with you. It does request a response by tomorrow, because they do want to roll it out effective tomorrow and through December 31st. They did include in the IGA the 2 FTEs and the $100,000 that we requested in order to assist with reach out and making sure all areas of the county are covered. I'm also pleased to point out to you that not only they will have an electronic portal, but they will also make paper applications available through the local DES office. So they haven't brought this to the board before and haven't received your approval. To proceed, we are going to go ahead and proceed with processing this IGA and come back to the board at the next board meeting for ratification. The only other item that I have for you today is the COVID-related reporting as far as our county employees are impacted. We are seeing improvements, and I would say substantial ones in the month of January, at least this year. We have seen a decline. It started with 18 positive cases in the first pay period, and this year in January, it dropped to 10 in the second pay period, and we only had 2 positive cases in the last pay period, which was practically the first half of February. That's all I have for you today. Thanks.
Thank you, Manager Altiers. Need a motion to approve the January 19th, 2021 Board of Supervisors meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Call to the public, Stephen Robinson.
The last shall be first. Stephen Robinson, Golden Valley. In a moment, you'll be hearing from Robert Hall, owner of Great American Pizza, regarding the recall of Supervisor Gene Bishop and about other issues. I have 2 questions for Supervisor Angus and Supervisor Bishop. Shortly after the recall was started by Mr. Hall, Miss Angus, you directed me and ordered me to stop the recall, which I couldn't because I didn't start it. Then you made plans, or you directed that the Democrat or the Republicans in the Central Committee that represent elected or registered Republicans throughout the county, you said you wanted to stop them, me and others, from pursuing a recall. The recall is so important, it's part of our First Amendment rights. Yet you want to punish pre-PCs, and you wanted to punish me directly by illegally removing me from the ballot for state committeeman. I want to know why you did that. It's totally inappropriate. It was illegal. It was like voter fraud. Supervisor Bishop. When we filed this report, or this recall petition, it was done so based upon your policies, your actions, your votes. You were the deciding vote to put in a $1,000 a day fine, and even though it did get voted to reduce it to $50, the opportunity to shut down a business that didn't follow those provisions were also approved at the board. Sadly, you had your allies start making personal attacks on Robert and me simply for doing our constitutional right, which is to say if there's abusive power by officials, we have a right to question it. The amount of attacks on Facebook and others is just overwhelming. I've been very quiet because it doesn't do any good to answer ridiculous, unfair, and dishonest attacks. Will you request your people to stop it at this point? That's my questions. Thank you.
Chris Rodarty.
Chris O'Darty, Kingman. On June 16, 1778, James Madison said, "I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments from those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations." In March 2020, a silent encroachment slithered into Americans' lives in the form of a seasonal flu bug. Soon after, the CDC warned widespread death was imminent, and that in order to avoid overcrowded hospitals and bodies piled up in the streets, we must surrender our God-given natural rights to unelected government bureaucrats. We fearfully obeyed and were promised insanity would end after 14 days to flatten the curve. 14 days became 14 weeks, and now we rapidly approach 14 months with no end in sight. In an effort to spark the attention of Mojave County leaders, a group of Lake Havasu patriots proposed a sanctuary county resolution empowering us to ignore mask mandates, shutdown orders, and other illegal decrees spewing forth from the governor. As a result, a watered-down version was approved on January 19th with a modest nod to the Bill of Rights. Edited language aside, we the people were encouraged that Mojave County had publicly stepped up to declare its agreement by upholding principles set forth by our founders. Well, so far, I haven't seen any demonstrated improvement. If anything, it's worse. Shuttered small businesses that will never reopen, restaurant workers, grocery clerks, county workers, anyone employed anywhere is wearing the face mask. Tables in restaurants continue to be cordoned off to distance diners. Signs requiring masks remain on storefronts. I've been ejected several times for refusing to muzzle, and what's next? Proof of vaccination required to enter a grocery store? Mojave County, I thought by now we'd be returning to life as free Americans. Sadly, I was wrong. It's time for you to show some courage, abandon political ideology, and get to work for we the people. Stand up to Ducey. Stand up to Biden. Stand up to the global agenda. Stand up for the citizens of Mojave County. Honor your commitment to Resolution 2021-17. Do it because you can. Do it because you should, and do it because you must.
John Gillen. John Gillen. Pardon? It's Jillene, or is that double T? Yeah, sorry.
Chairman Johnson, members of the board, John Gillette from Kingman. I want to address the reopening of schools in Mojave County. As of today, we can go to Walmart, Home Depot, the bowling alley, a lot of places with little or no restriction. The governor has rescinded his executive order on bars and gyms. Many aspects of life we carry on in normal fashion. COVID is a new fact of life. It's something we have to deal with, but not at the sacrifice of our children's academic, emotional, and social development. This is the fabric of a nation, is the childhood education. Lockdowns, closures, social distancing, they've proven ineffective. We've had the mask, we've had the barriers, we've done it all, but yet numbers still go up, numbers still go down. Next, I'll quote Arizona Revised Statute, Chapter 8, 15801. It states, verbatim, except as may be otherwise authorized, by the Superintendent of Public Instruction to accommodate a year-round school operation. The school year shall begin 1 July and end 30 June. And a school month is 20 school days or 4 weeks of 5 days each. 8/15/802, every child between 6 and 16 years shall attend school and shall be provided instruction in reading, grammar, math, and social studies. There are no COVID carve-outs for the law. We confirmed this with the Attorney General's office, the Governor's office. There's no proclamation or law that can forbid a school from reopening. We've spoken to school leaders. We found that several requirements were replaced by the health department. Some confusing, some leaders are unsure what to do with these requirements. The health department has been unresponsive to answer these questions. Still, many schools in Mojave County are open and did not close. There are several schools in Bullhead that remained open the entire time. They did not have an increase in numbers. They're not off the charts. They are consistent with numbers that are normal within the rest of the state. We had volunteers lined up to help the Mojave County Health Department get vaccinations. It was requested on their website. Once the volunteers were put together, which were made up of doctors, nurses, other licensed credentialed healthcare providers in the state, the health department said they didn't need them, wouldn't be necessary. The government, FDA, CDC have all cleared the way to open the schools. We strongly request the board order the superintendent of schools to direct all schools to comply with the law, open up full-time traditional in-person learning, and remove any perception of intimidation from the health department or any litigious worries that the school districts may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. David Lerner.
Good morning. My name is David Lerner, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Great American Freedom Fighters. Today I'm going to speak about one of our friends. Her name is Nikki. Nikki was forced to wear a mask. That caused an infection on her nose that has left scarring, permanent scarring. She used medication, but she has permanent scarring now on her face. Now that was done by stripping her of her constitutional rights. Now the second infection has started on her face again because she's forced to wear a mask. Now you all know, you've gone too far. If we know that Doug Ducey is a treasonous person, you know. If you're following instructions from somebody committing treason, I would back up. Number two, we have also masks do not work. Nikki is responsible for her own health, not the government. That is another constitutional right. You now have knowledge of the danger and also the damage forced masks wearing causes. Taking people's temperatures. How do you practice medicine without having a medical license? You're giving these rights to the businesses to take our rights. You've given them the right to take our rights and our constitutional rights that were guaranteed to us. Here's our study done by Copenhagen that says there is no difference on a study that was based on 6,000 people. 6,000 people. And these show there's no difference between wearing a mask and not wearing a mask. But you force us to wear a mask. I had open heart surgery in March of 20. I did not wear a mask. I did not wear a mask.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Robert Hall.
Robert Hall, Great American Pizza. Ladies and gentlemen, what's your purpose for the mask? Where are the clinical studies that prove that they work? All of you keep saying that the science knows best. Well, let's see the evidence in the science. Which one is the best? Is it the surgical mask the surgeon wears? Is it the homemade mask your grandma made? Is it the cloth bandana from Walmart? Is that the best? Which one is it? Please share your scientific evidence with all of us so we can be as smart as you guys are. How much money has the county spent on this at all? Have you spent any money on this at all to find the studies? What makes you think you have the authority to make these such demands on our business in the first place? Whose idea was it to label our business, Great American Pizza, a public nuisance and cause of sickness with absolutely no proof at all of anything? What makes you think you can violate our rights and our oath or your oath to the Constitution and break the law with no consequences? Please share with us who thought it was a good idea to violate our rights by trying to intimidate us and coerce us into your way of thinking. If we don't feel the way you feel, are we now a criminal? You are acting outside of your authority and acting like a bunch of rulers over all of us. Please tell me who gave you the authority to impose civil penalties on our business of $1,000 a day up to $10,000 and an injunction by the court to shut or close our business. Please explain to us how you have such authority to do these heinous acts. Who appointed our health director? Is she herself a doctor, nurse, CNA? What is her qualifications? What is her background in the field of medical advice? Does she know that the mask will not stop a virus? Says it right on the box. Does she know that the virus is over 99% survivable, folks, for real? Does she really believe almost every death this year was caused by the virus? Does she really believe that no one died of a heart attack, nobody died of lung cancer, nobody died of a car accident, nobody died on a motorcycle, nobody died of a gunshot to the chest? They all died from COVID. Are we to believe that no one died of anything but COVID? Why does she not come out with the facts to support her demands? Why does the report every day in the local paper is a rising cases, except what I heard today, with no proof whatsoever or solutions for the public? Why do all of you claim it is we are all in this together when none of you have a chance at losing your paycheck or losing your business or your income? Have any of you considered what you've done to the tax revenue that you guys have destroyed? How will you get the tax revenue back? Will you soon be telling us that we need a tax increase? I believe so. Please tell me why we should trust any of you that voted for this when you failed to provide us any of the facts. I'm done.
Stephen Tominello.
My name is Stephen Tuminello. I'm a resident of Lake Havasu City here in Mojave County, Arizona. I'm speaking on behalf of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, as well as myself as a local resident. I have some questions. Since the state of emergency has been lifted, why are we still being required to wear a mask in many of the businesses such as restaurants, bars, health and fitness centers, especially because the mask conflicts with health and fitness? Since there's no emergency and no mandatory mask mandate, why are we still requiring servers in the restaurants to wear germ-spreading masks that they are constantly touching and pulling on so that they can breathe, and then they touch your menus, your plates, your glasses? OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, has stated that a normal oxygen level is 21%. When that mask goes on, it reduces it by 15% down to 17.85% below OSHA acceptable levels. So the Mojave County Health Department is asking restaurants like Great American Pizza to violate OSHA requirements and become subject to possible workman's compensation claims or lawsuits from their employees for damaging their health. Shouldn't the Mojave County Health Department be commending Great American Pizza for practicing excellent hygiene with their servers and not violating OSHA requirements? Something's wrong with this picture. This makes absolutely no sense. Now, my understanding is the Great American Pizza owners, Robert and Kathleen Hall, have never signed an attestation agreement giving up their rights to not follow these illegal and unconstitutional orders from the state and the county. So why is Mojave County Health Department constantly threatening Great American Pizza with fines and closure? I want to ask the health department who is ordering them to do what they're doing. In a recent study, 10 million people were tested and no asymptomatic cases were found. And this was the main reason for the wearing of the face mask. In a previous board meeting, Ron Gould asked why we had approximately 175 cases of the flu last year at this time, and this year we only have one. Could it be that the flu has been rebranded as COVID due to the financial incentives offered to the hospitals? Now, we know that the overall deaths in 2020 are about the same as they were for 2019, so evidently the 200,000 plus supposed deaths from COVID were actually the flu or pneumonia or other causes. We never wore masks for pneumonia, the flu, or tuberculosis. The Emergency Powers Act is unconstitutional, and the mask is a symptom of the shredding of the Constitution. To add insult to injury, we recently heard that the new administration wants to allow 11 million illegal immigrants to enter our country untested for COVID. Why are they not concerned about our health safety since COVID-19 has been presented to us as deadly as the plague, even though we have a 99.5% survival rate?
Thank you, sir. Karen Vanderjack.
Thank you.
Hi, Karen Vanderjack, Lake Havasu City. I'd like to address two statements in your watered-down resolution 2021-017. They would apply to recent experience I went through and the importance of addressing in the strongest term the stand of the Mojave County. I'm referring to the last whereas in the resolution. It quote, the importance to interpose for arresting the progress of evil and for maintaining within their respective limits the authorities, rights, and liberties appertaining to them. And also in section 1, quote, the legislator reclaims the authority to hear from the respective and divergent parts of the community so that proper policy and legislation may be made. Now, recently I was in a very awkward situation when shopping at the mall in Lake Havasu City. I didn't wear a mask due to a disability, and that's usually not a problem. On February 1st, I rushed into the See's Candy to pick up a sugar-free candy, and there were no customers, and I planned to be in there and out very quickly. The clerk was adamant about me putting on a mask. As I usually do, I explained the governor's exemption 2020-46 and told her I would be in and out very quickly. She continued to go on with her insistence of including me and calling me selfish. I tried to explain the law of public access and the discrimination as stated in the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Now, to make the story short, she called mall security, which I welcome due to the insanity of this insistence. I was outside the store at this point and even suggested paying outside. And no, even the mall security decided to call the police. Oh, I was fine with that. Apparently, it had morphed into trespassing, but no signs were posted. I called my advocate, Steve Tumanello, who is with the Constitutional Sheriff's Association, to be a witness and perhaps bring sanity to the situation. The law was explained to the officer, however. He charged me with trespassing and banned me from the store completely, oblivious to my rights or even a voice in the situation. By the way, this was all recorded, And I later heard from the public relations of the Lake Havasu Police, and they told me that Steve and I were very calm and professional during the whole time. Now, here's my concern. This mask issue is physically, mentally, and spiritually damaging to us oxygen breathers, and it should be our line in the sand, because if we allow them to mask muzzle us, then what are they going to do next? There's a law that states when you open a business, there's an implied consent that you will serve all customers equally and without discrimination. This is a public accommodation period. No shoes, no shirt, no service is a misconception of this 1964 Civil Rights Act. We can't allow this unlawful behavior.
Vanderjack, your time is up.
Yes.
All right, we'll go on to the consent agenda. Items 5 through 29. Supervisor Angus, you have any you want to pull?
Not this morning.
Supervisor Bishop?
I have nothing.
Supervisor Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 18 and number 26.
Supervisor Langenfelter?
Item 7, please.
Item 7. Can I get a motion to approve items 5 through 29 minus 7, 18, and 26?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 7, special event permit. Is that Supervisor Langenfelter?
Thank you, Chairman. Wondering if there's anybody on staff that can answer some questions, maybe?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lingenfelter, absolutely. Tim can take care of any questions you may have.
Morning, Tim.
Good morning.
I was reading through this, and it says it's a music festival, art festival, and a peace protest. What are they protesting? Do you know? Is there anybody here in the audience that is from that event that can?
Chairman Johnson, Supervisor Lingenfelter, I couldn't tell you offhand what exactly they're protesting. Basically, they came in with the application, provided all the requirements of the special use permit, therefore we brought it to the board. I don't know if the applicant, I don't believe the applicant is here.
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that question.
Supervisor Bishop?
I spoke to the organizers and I asked them the same question, and they informed me that they just placed that on the application because, what? Okay, they said they put that on the application thinking it would be approved if it was on it, but they do not plan any protest at all.
Very good, thank you. And Tim, last question. It looks like you guys are recommending approval, is that correct?
That's correct. They've met all the recommendations. They've provided us with letters of consent from the various stakeholders and have indicated that they will comply with all of the requirements.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 7.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 18, Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 18 seems to be tied to item 16 or item 26, where the board would be creating voting center method of voting. So we've got the funding in front of the actual question. If we could address item 26 first, we would determine whether we need to approve funding for something that's not yet approved.
All right, I'll table this item and go and call item 26. Supervisor Gould.
Good morning. My name is Lydia. I'm the Chief Deputy Recorder. For number 26, that's just going to be for the emergency voting. So we're doing the recall election for the Hackberry School District, and we're not hosting any early voting, just ballots by mail. So this is just if they're not able to vote by mail or be at the polls on election day, they would be able to come to our office and do emergency voting.
Mr. Chairman, apparently I confused 26 with 31 on the regular agenda.
You want to reconsider?
No. You know, I was all for expanding the ability for people to vote however they wanted to vote, but the way that the last election went down, I'm no longer interested in making it overly easy to vote and voting data last for an extended period of time. There should be a price to pay to be a citizen. My ancestors fought a revolution and laid down their lives to free us from a king. So if people can't make the time to vote during regular voting hours that we already have that are extended, I'm not really that motivated to give them the opportunity to come in on the weekend and vote. People just need to plan their time a little bit better. I don't think we need to be open night and day. And I would make a motion to deny item 26.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Chairman Johnson, if I could just add something to this.
Yes, Attorney Esplin.
So this is something that has been approved by the board on multiple occasions before this. This is a pretty, well, I know it was approved in the November 2020 election. I imagine it was before that. This has been in the law for some time. There's been some recent modifications and things, but what it's talking about is somebody suffers an emergency at that specific time, they're allowed to vote during then. I mean, it's a very narrow exception that the legislature has allowed. I just want to make sure that you're clear on what we're talking about. I mean, it's a very narrow, if you suffer an emergency during this particular time, it's like Friday to Monday, the weekend before the election occurs, that would allow that to happen. And the number of people that this actually, I don't know how many, once or twice has it happened? I mean, it's pretty rare that this ever happens at all. It's pretty routine. This is presented to the board. I just don't want you to misunderstand or confuse with the other issues of voting centers and the other things that you'll be talking about in the other items.
Chairman Johnson?
Supervisor Angus?
So do people have to prove they had an emergency?
Yes,
And
they do.
what kind of emergency? Do they have to get a doctor's note? I mean, it seems
So
a little...
here's what they have to do. They have to first show identification. Then they have to sign an affidavit. There's an emergency voting affidavit. And if I recall, I think it's on there.
I have one.
Yeah, it's in the back up here. They put their name, the identification number. They declare under penalty of perjury that I am experiencing or have experienced an emergency after 5 p.m. on the Friday immediately preceding the election and before 5 p.m. on the Monday immediately preceding the election. And the emergency is defined as any unforeseen circumstances that prevent me from voting at the polls. So, no, it doesn't require a doctor's note or anything like that, but that's what the legislature has determined is an emergency for purposes of this thing. And so I just want to make sure that you're aware of what you're voting on, that this is something that's pretty common and pretty routine, and really it's hardly ever used. It's just in the event if somebody says, man, I just can't make it to that poll a day because I'm in the hospital or something like that.
Mr. Esplin, the question I would have, if this vote goes down, does it in any way violate the voters' voting rights?
No, I don't think it will. I'm trying to provide as much information as possible. I don't think it would, because you have to. It's something that the board has to specifically vote for. If you look at the statute on it, it specifically says on vote of the board may authorize these things. So I don't think it would. I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff here because I don't have the statute in front of me. Let me just, if you want to keep on talking, I can double check real quick the statute. But
Do you have a question, Mr. Supervisor Lingenfelter?
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Just to build upon what's already been said, you know, voting is a privilege, and I think that what constitutes an emergency should really be narrowly tailored. So I'm not too impressed with the legislature's definition. It's pretty open-ended and it's pretty ambiguous. I guess my question, though, would be, what are the consequences to the process if this item does get rejected, does go down?
I mean, I think one of the consequences, obviously, if somebody falls into that category, which admittedly is incredibly rare. I mean, we're talking about a very narrow, specific, it's got to be an emergency during that time period leading up to it. It can't be today, it can't be tomorrow, it can't be 1 week before, it can't be 2 weeks before. It's got to be that weekend from Friday to 5, Monday to 5, and it's really only for early voting people. Otherwise,
Anyone's eligible for emergency voting, but it is after early voting has ended.
That's right.
So it's just the weekend between early voting and voting on election day.
yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould?
The legislature does not define an emergency. in this bill. Apparently, it's anything that happens that would prevent you from voting early on Friday till voting on Tuesday. So I would argue that this is not really an emergency. I don't know how many emergencies take place that I have 4 days' notice that I have to act. Emergencies are generally life and limb, that somebody's going to pass away because I can't vote. And I don't think that that really fits this. And I used to be in the legislature, and they don't always make the wisest decisions, believe it or not. Thank you.
So to answer the question, the ramifications, looking at the statute, as a result of experiencing an emergency between 5 p.m. on Friday and the 5 p.m. on Monday preceding the election, qualified electors may request to vote in a manner. So voters have this right to request this, and it's got to be decided by the Board of Supervisors as to how to do it. So I recommend that the board approve it in the case that this is something that needs to be required for somebody who experiences that situation.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I believe that this was the same statute that was used by Maricopa County and a particular Senate candidate to game the system and win a U.S. Senate seat in the 2018 election. The Maricopa County declared an emergency voting center. It appeared that that particular candidate had foreknowledge that this was going to happen and had pre-prepared door hangers to tell people where to go. If you read the newspaper, you might know who I'm talking about. But I urge denial. Thank you.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman. Ryan, are you saying that is this required by the law or not?
I think that a voter has the right to be able to say, hey, if I fit this criteria, I need to know how to do it. And if you don't give them that option, they will be denied. Again, it's incredibly rare that this happens. I don't know what Supervisor Gould is talking about, the incident that happened. I'm not familiar with that, but it looks like that they do have that right to be able to say, hey, I've suffered an emergency during this time period at this time, and the board here decides what the ramifications are in terms of how that person can vote. So again, I recommend that the board adopt it.
Mr. Chairman? Again, so if it's something that we have to do, why is it in front of us? Why are we voting on it?
Talk to the legislature. I mean, the legislature
Since
specifically
it's our
says so.
choice.
But you prescribe what the terms are, and that's what they're presenting. They're presenting to you, this is where we want it. We want to do it at this location. You do it here. You could say, well, we do it at a different location if you wish to do that.
It's just another thing that can be used for sinister reasons, and it will be, no doubt about it, just like it was. I know what you're talking about. I remember that well. So my second still stands.
Chairman Johnson.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Attorney Asplund, you said that we prescribe the conditions. Does that mean that we can add specifically what constitutes an emergency?
I don't think so, because it specifically says in there what an emergency is. It does. It says, for purposes of this subsection, emergency means any unforeseen circumstances that prevent the elector from voting at the polls. And again, I'm just reading here as quickly as I can. I think 16411, a different statute, B5, on a specific resolution of the board that is limited to a specific election date and that is voted upon, the board may authorize. So that suggests that you do have some leeway. Okay, so it's quite possible that you may have some leeway. It's just I think the challenge that you're going to have is if somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I met this criteria," and the board didn't give it to me. That's the risk you run. I think that's the worry that I have.
But the word statute does include may. The word may is in statute.
In 16411.
Thank you.
Correct.
Any more discussion? We have a motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Whoop.
All opposed?
To recast my vote.
Okay, 1 minute, please. I'll nullify that vote.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready? We have a motion in front of us to deny item number 26. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay.
All right, motion carries. Item 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I stated earlier, I don't know that I'm interested in creating methods of voting that I find problematic. I'm not sure that there's really a need for the vote center concept in Mojave County. When I was in the legislature and voted for this, we were looking at Maricopa County and the fact that somebody might live in a suburb and work downtown. And with their traffic issue, they may be concerned that if they vote before they go to work, they'll get tied up in traffic. And if they can't get home to vote due to traffic, they would be ineligible to vote. That would give them the ability to vote at a voting center downtown. I don't see that as a need in Mojave County. I don't think we have that many people that flow from one of the 4 various communities on a daily basis. With the fact that you can vote for a month before the election, I just don't see the necessity of going to a voting center. This is the funding, I believe, to buy the equipment, to approve the equipment, but I don't know that we need the equipment if we don't approve voting centers. Thank you.
Mr. Temper, this is your item.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Supervisor Johnson, Supervisor Gold, everybody else. You want to ask me a question or you just want me to start talking? That's scary when I start that.
Supervisor Gould.
Alan, you can make your pitch.
Got it. All right. Okay, I can see right away Supervisor Gold isn't necessarily, give me a second, got to do these days, a fan of taking Mojave County elections to the next level. How I kind of phrased it on that 3-part write-up I did about this, which, by the way, I think was really cool. You know, I just thought I'd let you know that. I had these ideas in my mind. This idea to do 2 things here. You addressed one idea, okay, vote centers. The other part is about having precinct scanners, and I'll get back into that in a moment, okay, and what they are and the advantages. Approximately 2/3 of all the counties in Arizona, okay, 2/3, have vote centers and also have precinct level scanners. Let's just start with that, okay? Now, in 2016, when we purchased a new voting system, I went bare bones minimum. We decided, you know, amongst with the board, to end up going and just counting all the ballots in-house called central count, okay, to start with, and to keep the concept of the poll site center. We at the same time moved with the creation and the technology of the electronic polling book to be able to vote in more than one location in an area, actually any area you want to in the county, but we put them in an area. For instance, my classic example is Bullhead City. Love it. There's used to be 10 locations. We moved them to 4. We made larger locations, put them where we know the people are going to be going and such. But one person can go and vote. Somebody cannot go and vote in one place in Bullhead City and then go to another place and vote in Bullhead City, because by the time they've already checked in, the records have been updated if they do show at the next place, okay? So that's the technology that allows that. That's the technology that allows a vote center, which is the ability for anybody to go to any location in the county to cast their ballot. Now, we had close to 200 ballot styles in the primary, and we had almost 100 ballot styles in the general election. And that would mean we had 24 precincts. A precinct is a political entity with common characteristics, shared characteristics. A polling location is something totally different. We can put as many polling locations as we want inside of precincts because of the technology of the electronic poll book. Okay, so we decided baby steps from 2016 on to allow people to vote in more than one location in a select area, which just naturally progresses into vote centers. Vote centers would allow anybody. Now, to be able to do so, you need something called a ballot-on-demand printer, because I cannot supply every ballot style to every physical polling location for every place somebody walks in. Expect somebody would walk in from Kingman up to Colorado City, and this does indeed happen. People working up on the Arizona Strip did not go and vote, and they show up in Colorado City, not really Moxie, but Colorado City, and say, you know what, I can't get to Kingman by the end of the day. Can I vote? Well, the technology allows that between the electronic poll books, which we already have, okay, and that's going to be a continuation. They've worked really, really well, and the ballot-on-demand printer. Now, a ballot-on-demand printer can come in one of two different ways. A ballot-on-demand printer can be a printer that prints ballot stock right at the polling place, a physical sheet of paper like you're used to seeing with all the marks to make it read, or it can be done another way with we have the express votes. The express vote is what's the handicap accessible device, the ADA device, where people with different issues makes it easier for them to vote. It's just the bottom line that it does, okay? And we're required to have at least that ability at every polling location, and we have since 2004 for the Help America Vote Act with the prior set of equipment. But what makes the stuff we have now is really cool is it does not electronically tabulate your vote at the poll. It is a ballot marking device. A ballot marking device means it prints a card the same length, half the width, and the selections that the voter had chosen, and it's in barcode, and that gets read through the scanning machines just like any other ballot. So that person who goes from Kingman to Colorado City works and says, oh my gosh, I got to vote, they would be able to go into that polling location, and their proper ballot style would print up for when they go to the express vote unit. Others, as I said, 2/3 of the counties are doing something very similar to that. They're doing it because they're being able to vote anywhere with vote centers, but however direction that they head. Our equipment, that is the most logical lead into it. I want to get to the second part, precinct scanners. Precinct scanners, we've had precinct scanners from 2014 up to 2016. A precinct scanner is when the voter votes their paper ballot. We're still staying paper, all paper, which is really cool because it's accountable and auditable. A person would vote their ballot, go over, put it into a machine, be it the ballot-on-demand ballot or the ones that were supplied for the polling place. I will still plan on supplying the ballots down in Bullhead City, all the Bullhead City ballots, a whole bunch of them there. Okay? The regular ones down there for the people who want the big full-face ballots. It would just be for the people that want to go in a convenience or a necessity to go elsewhere to vote. They would vote the express vote unit. Now, they would take their ballot, regardless, I got off track. They would take their ballot, no matter what type, and put it into a precinct scanner. We had a gazillion phone calls from people saying to us, did my ballot count? Can you tell me if my ballot counted? And I says, why wouldn't it count? I mean, basically, and I would get into the conversation and see where they were coming from. I was at the polling place and I put it into a box. I don't believe it. I heard they were sitting at the polling place afterwards. Well, I can assure you that they weren't. How can you assure me? I counted them election night. So I was going through many of these conversations. Basically, there's two things, the advantage of a precinct scanner. These are really good advantages. We just chose 4 years ago not to purchase them for the money-wise and such. But the things are voter confidence. When somebody puts their ballot into a scanner, it goes zzz, into the box. It technically counts it. At the end of the night when they close the polls, it counts that ballot right there on the spot, and that's voter confidence. Second of all, what I think is even more important is voter intent, adjudication. Now, we have certain rules we live for voter intent and adjudication. In other words, when we have a lot of time to do early ballots. We have 2 weeks leading into the election that we can start, and boy, we take every minute of it. So when an early ballot comes in and we count them on our big central scanners, which we had 81,000 of the 205,000, or 83 or 84, something like that, counted on the central count scanners, early ballots, they kicked out on the scanners, and we knew if there was something wrong, if there was an overvote there or a bad marking, which would be voiding that person's either race or total ballot. And we have certain rules we have to follow to reduplicate a ballot, and that takes 15 minutes to 20 minutes to do a ballot between how we do it with with groups of people and checking that the right, and an agreement on that's what that voter meant. Okay, I'm just not going to go deep into that. We have rules that we follow for that. Hey, election night, that's a whole different story. Us trying to adjudicate 24,000 out of 24,000 ballots on election night, that's a really tough call, trying to decide what the voter wants. Now, if you have a precinct scanner, that ballot kicks right back out to that voter. This isn't new. You know, I said we've done it from 2004 to 2016, and it says burp, and it has a message right there, overvote, President of the United States, or what have you. Well, that person has two options. They can either let that ballot count as it is and not have that race count. Excuse me?
Push the green button.
I guess green button, that's a good button, the go button, right? Or they have the option to get another ballot and fix it. They can't fix it on their own after it's already, after the election when it goes into the box. So these are the two directions I'd like to head. It's a natural progression. Actually, it's what's to be, it's the next, it's voter expectation. The real voter expectation is when can we vote online? We ain't going into that one. Okay? But basically down the road, maybe something like that may work out with securities and stuff. But I got a call from a reporter, doesn't matter, over in Tucson after the election, wanted to know why in the world we didn't have vote centers. We're like the only one who didn't. And I said, well, we're not the only one who didn't, so wherever you're getting your information from. But let me tell you, there's reasons right now how I would like our county to move into that direction, if it's acceptable. And besides that, I said, do you realize we're the 5th largest geographic county in the United States? We got people up in Colorado City and Moccasin that we fly the ballots in by plane, to count them, to get them together. So he understood. He said, oh, so it's sort of like a logistical geography thing. I said, yeah, if that's what you want to believe, that's good. It's true. Okay? And there's other reasons. I just want to be able to get us to go to the next direction. Okay? That being said, that was my spiel. So,
Pitch.
Oh, yes, my pitch. That was my pitch. What do you think?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alan, people I'm talking to want to go to the Iraqi method and dump their finger in a pot of ink. That's how little confidence people have. I can see the advantage of the ballot scanner at the poll, which is what we used to do.
Yep.
The problem that they had with that, you had an issue with that in Maricopa County, people telling them just push the button and it'll count your vote. Well, that actually was overriding the fact that they had an overvote.
Training.
Right.
But, yeah, we can't train everybody perfectly, so
Right.
keep going.
So I don't really have a problem with the vote scanning machine. That still can't be tied to the internet.
Nope.
And actually, I kind of like that better than the Tupperware box o' ballots method that we're using now. But I still don't like the vote center concept because I think it just makes it more complex. And the reason that we have the electronic poll book was also the consolidation of precincts. Before we consolidated from 73 precincts, each precinct had a specific polling place.
Correct.
And now you were able to consolidate them because of the electronic polling book.
Correct.
So that was a creation of the electronic polling book, not the other way around.
That is correct. I'm gonna add something in here.
And if I could also just interject too, Chairman, just to follow through on the discussion about the vote centers, I can tell you definitively that decision has to come before the board every election. So at 16.411 specifically says not less than 20 days before a general or primary election and at least 10 days before a special election, the board will vote on whether to have a vote center. So just so you're aware that decision has to come before the board with every election. So just keep that in mind when you're voting on this as well, too.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
That's exactly what happened. It went before the Board of Supervisors and a judge. And then they set up emergency voting centers that a candidate appeared to have foreknowledge of.
No, I mean, I'm not talking about emergency voting centers. That's a different item. I'm talking just voting centers in general. Because the emergency voting centers are something different than the voting centers that we're talking about here.
Okay.
So just so you're aware of that.
Point taken.
Yeah.
Now, can I just add one more thing in an advantage of the vote center? Provisional ballots. Provisional ballots, we were able to cut down on provisional ballots by about 80% when we allowed people, because of the technology of the electronic poll book, to know whether somebody was sent an early ballot and whether it was received back by the recorder's office. You know, it's wonderful, right? So many people weren't voting them, and especially this election, people not trusting the mail, you know, so they were, you know, coming in to vote, not even trusting to bring an envelope in and stick it into the box at the polling place. So there's the next largest group are the people that changed their name and their address. That's what a provisional ballot is for. You know, you're registered in Mojave County. This is the simplistic. And you didn't change your voter registration information. You were legally registered, like say in one part of the county to another. Yeah, you're allowed to go in and vote the ballot where you live. That's the requirement, by filling out a provisional ballot envelope in the voter registration department. She's still here, great. Changes that information form. That is the process. Now, there was one other point about people that insisted on voting out of precinct. You need to vote in precinct at our current model. You cannot be in Bullhead City, be in Lake Havasu, live in Bullhead City, be in Lake Havasu for that day and vote there. Because people are sending them back to Bullhead City and they're saying, you know what, it's 6:30 at night. I'm not going to make it and I'm voting for the president. It doesn't matter to me. You know what, my people are trained and they're not robots. They're people, right? And to say, you know what, and even confrontational. Oh yeah, angry, ugly things going on. And people saying to them, you know what, you vote will not count. You're not in the right precinct. I'm showing it right here. Right? I don't care. And oh my gosh, the phone calls we got after that was, oh my gosh, it was horrible. Okay? Not a gazillion. But I don't know, would Lydia happen to know, come on up, would you happen to know about how many people voted out of precinct provisionally? If one person does it, it's one too many. Okay, my opinion. But do you have a, since they do the acknowledgments of them and send me the good ones to count.
So for the general election, I'm not certain. I'd say less than 30 people probably voted on a precinct, but they would also be able to vote by the express vote machine if they put them in the right precinct. So if they put the right ballot on the envelope, we could count their ballot.
So yeah, that's the real secret. And 30, and I'll tell you what, thank you, Lydia. 30. Oh, that's a lot less than ever was because voter education was out there. Okay, people have learned you got to go to your place to vote. They know that. You know, people know you got to go and show ID. You know, that took 10 years for people to understand this. You know, but that's worked itself out. Okay, but overall, if one person votes out of precinct and their ballot is negated for that reason, that's one too many people.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alan, did she just say that they can currently vote out of precinct on the voting machine?
Nope, we don't allow it to happen.
What was it that she said then?
She said if they could. She said,
okay.
Yes, that would be a vote center if we did that.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'm proposing, you know, and I'm proposing to put just some extra equipment that allow that to happen in the busiest locations. That's really that simple. We already have the ability there. But I've not come before you all to say, can we turn it that way? You know, allow it to happen.
Are you concerned with losing control over the printing of the ballots if we're going to be printing ballots in the precinct?
I'm not concerned at all. I would still have the same. I got a plan for a party of 130,000 people. And I got to figure out where these people are going to show up. And I have ballots printed for all of them, so to speak, less the amounts of people that did the Peebles and that's permanent early voting list to a portion, right? Basically, no. This is not really a very expensive venture either. I mean, the machines are about $5,000 a piece, okay? It's it. They're about $5,000. That's
my concern is not as so much the cost of the machine. My concern is that people can print ballots in the precinct. That's my concern.
They don't print ballots in a precinct with the express vote unit. What I'm proposing is this. It's the touchscreen machine. They check in on the electronic poll book. It has a barcode. So you know, you're living in Yucca and you're in Kingman for today, and they're having a meeting on Tuesday, right? You can go to one of the Kingman precincts. It would give you a proper barcode. You would walk to that I got where you're coming from. But you walk to the express vote, and your ballot automatically comes up and you mark your correct ballot. That prints out and you're going to put it in either the ballot box or the precinct scanner. So yes, they can print it, but you need to have you have to have a checked-in code to do that. So as opposed to giving them off of the table, right, the full-face ballots, they're getting a ballot another way. It starts a blank piece of card and prints that so that people just can't sit there and push buttons. There's people that are next to the machines to guide them, so to speak, not watch what they're doing, but watch what they're doing over here. Here you go. They activate the ballot. Have fun, right? Print their ballot. We'll put it over there. They go over there. It's over. It's not a medley.
So the out-of-precinct voting would only be on the voting machine or the ballot marker?
Only on we'd like to call it a ballot marker.
Okay.
Because it doesn't electronic. That's a freaky thing for some people, that it's being electronically recorded. Not.
State law requires that they have a paper ballot that they can look at anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the ballots used in the ballot marker are going to be different in appearance than the ballots used at the table?
They are, but you'll still know, you will never know who cast what ballot. And they're getting very popular. For instance, I had Community Presbyterian Church cast almost 2,000 ballots down for the general election down in Lake Havasu. The gentleman who's the inspector, 800 people voted on the express vote down there. So you don't know who's who. You have no idea if that's kind of where it was going.
No, that wasn't where it's going, but I thank you for that.
I get that question.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Supervisor.
I'm a little confused. You said that we used to have these machines. I remember putting it into a counting machine. So what happened? Why did we stop using it?
Money. In 2016, I did not, you were on the board at that time, and we chose to go bare bones minimum. We went down and just bought central scanners and not precinct scanners. The plan was for me, in my mind, was to always to be able to save enough money in the equipment replacement fund to move to this direction, because I'm a leader and a follower at the same time. I've got to see many of my counterparts go to that direction and have recently adopted this because of what others had gone and done. So it's the natural progression to go and do it, and I think it is the right thing to do.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would like a little bit more time to really, this is important, and it's not imminent. I mean, we don't have a big election coming up, so I would like to continue this so all of us get our questions answered.
Can I add to this? Yes, wonderful. Timing is still good. I got until June 30th. If you noticed, I have 2 pots of money that we never had that we're allowed to use to do this. It was HAVA grant funds, federal funds that had to do with COVID. It was approved by our board to accept those funds. And it comes down to close to $400,000. Almost half of it has to be used, or I have to have it designated by June 30th for this year. And then the other one's the other June 30th. So it's not that, it's not like I better do it today or we're running. I'm trying to be a little progressive, right? Proactive is the right word. Proactive, thank you. Proactive, so if we all say yes, then I can start the ball rolling, Otherwise, it doesn't happen.
Chairman Johnson.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Alan, I think I agree with some of the other supervisors on this, where we are as a country, voter confidence is paramount. And that's an obligation that we have to take really seriously. So at least with this, it sounds to me as though you still have to physically show up to vote.
You do.
You're not going to have some dead person
that is correct.
showing up with like they would with a mail-in ballot, where, not that happens a lot, but who knows, right? So you have to physically show up to vote with this technology. And I don't have any problem with postponing it to further ask, questions to make sure we get everybody's questions answered. But, that at least to me, voter confidence, as long as we can guarantee voter confidence, then,
I think it adds voter confidence to the poll site. I don't think I know. From seeing that ballot go into a box and hearing zzzt, there's no doubt about that. I've never had lower voter confidence in my life until this year, and not just on us, just across the nation. Got that. That's going to add to that. So there's two aspects of this, you know, one or both or whatever, but I'm proposing for us to do both. So.
Are there any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I vote that we continue this for 60 days.
Second.
We have a motion, let's see, where are we at now? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 30, I'll open the public hearing, sitting as the Board of Directors for the Horizon 6 Improvement District. I have Deneen Wilhelmi.
Deneen Wilhelmi, Donkey Acres. I put in a yes and a no. Yes is we do need the money to bring our district up to, water district up to standards. The only reason I say yes is that I want this to be done for pressure relief valves, shut-off valves, vaults, and fire hydrants, nothing else. And why I say this is because what happens is somebody else will start adding in, and this thing will just all snowball. On the no part, what I see with this, there's no common sense and there's no accountability. And the residents of Horizon 6, we don't all have stupid across our forehead. The money amount that I see coming on this thing, it's varied from a couple $100,000 to $2 million. What is it going to be? How long is this going to last? Everybody knows when the government gets their fingers into the pie, this stuff starts and it never ends. I want to see how much we're going to use, when it's going to end, and how long it's going to last, and especially when it's going to end. Now, they sent out for bids to repair these pressure relief valves. The bids come in, and it was $50,000 to repair one pressure relief valve. We got 5 of them. That's $250,000. My question is, are these good bids? We don't know. And why I'm going to base some facts on this is, Ron Gould was going to move his office from Havasu City to the county building in Havasu. He asked for bids. The low bid come in at $160,000. He says, I'm not going to spend the taxpayers' money for that. Resubmit. They resubmit it, and the bid come in at $80,000. He saved the county $80,000. Now, everything that I get from the staff, everything has to be engineered. They said, we got to have an engineer to tell us what we need to repair. I just told you what needs to be repaired. That's when we started with our first meetings. That's what they told me to repair. Now they're coming in that we got to put new water lines in, the main new water lines. Where did this come from? They said they took an estimate, and they said that the water lines, the company said they're good for 100 years, but they estimate, and their opinion is, it's only going to last for 75 years. I estimate this will last for 100 years, and that's my opinion. And we all know estimates and opinions just like rear ends. We all got one. Now, we had a PR...
Thank you, sir. Sharon Gomez.
Thank you. The proposal to increase our water rates is premature. A number of concerned residents have been working very diligently to obtain a 51% approval of a petition to incur expenses for a bond to repair our water infrastructure. That proposal and petition was mailed out February and March of 2020. As you know, COVID hit at the same time our petition went out. The committee attempting to gain positive votes was dead in the water. We couldn't hold a public meeting or really go out and solicit residents to vote positively. Finally, in November 2020, we were able to hold a public meeting with a good amount of participation. A few members of the committee have been going door to door even, attempting to inform residents about the petition and to obtain additional signatures. We have been around Horizons. If you have been around Horizon 6, you know how difficult it is to go door to door. Lots of locked gates, long driveways, and nobody's home, except the dogs. We were finding many residents who were totally in the dark about the petition since it went out 1.5 years ago, and it was lost. The committee has had nothing but difficulties with the petition. First, the cost of print and mail petitions to the residents came directly out of the committee members' pockets. Then, additional letters of explanation and postcards have been sent out, attempting to explain the reasoning behind the petition. All of this was done to make up for the inability to hold committee meetings or community meetings. All the cost has come out of committee members' pockets at a total of $1,800. There was confusion between county staff and our committee as to what pages needed to be signed and returned. In addition, the petition required a notarized signature of at least one of the legal owners. Banks were closed down, and notary services were very scarce. The committee has been informed recently the notary is no longer required on the petition, so a new petition packet is now supposed to come out with a revised petition and subsequent pages. This means more printing and mailing costs. The drop requirement of a notary is of great help to us, but what about the additional costs? We have only been able to obtain so far approximately 64 signed petitions. I don't feel it's constructive at this point to rehash all the things I feel the county has done or not done to maintain our water infrastructure. I know we have many items that need to be fixed sooner rather than later. Raising our maintenance fees to $25 per lot per month will not fix our problems in the near future. I have been informed by your public works engineer.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mary Van Roof?
Ma'am? Ma'am? Yeah.
Yes.
How much time do you think the committee would need to give it a fair shot at getting your petition signature signed?
6 months.
Okay.
Even up to a year.
Okay.
I like to just add that if you raise the rates now, it will take 5 years to have enough money to fix just the pressure relief valves, and that's at construction costs at 2020, not to mention what it would be at 2025.
Sure, and that's really the choice today is, do we raise your fees and then save up the money to make your repairs, or do we give you time to circulate your petition to see if you can bond to make those repairs more expedient
infrastructure continues to become worse.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mary?
Good morning, Chairman, board members, and staff. I'm Mary Van Roy, 4034 Blue Canyon Road in Lake Havasu City, Horizon 6 Improvement District. And I did submit a letter in case I didn't drive up here, so I'll just, if you have questions from that letter, that'd be great. Talking to our property owners, the trust is a huge issue, trusting the county. The accountability, we haven't gotten straight answers, and I guess we're never going to get them. And the water flows. So we got water to our house, so it's like, what's the problem? And so that's really hard to get past all of that. Every area, city, county, everybody has water issues. Lake Havasu City spends, millions of dollars for maintenance and repairs, and that's just a normal maintenance continuation thing. And just one of your items today was Golden Valley. They have an improvement district, and their water tank maintenance was $94,000, so they must be a big water improvement district. These are expenses that everybody has to pay. I don't care if you have a house or car. Eventually, you have to do some repairs. Eventually, you have to replace or whatever. I'll flip over the page so you get the second page. So, I know I just read in the Kingman paper, they lost so much water, they're kind of shocked by it. So it's pretty much normal stuff, and we're actually very fortunate that we do have the city supplying our water and taking care of it. The money is the biggest issue of all, and people don't know where our money went, and we know a few $100,000 went to put new pumps in, but we have a hard time explaining to people that why did all the fire hydrants get red tagged? Why were all the pressure reducing valves gone? We don't understand it. So I don't know if you have any questions for me, because I think I've been repeating things over and over. And this is the one thing that just, this little sticker just gives people contact information. And I wanted to say that Mike, your engineer in the county, put a wonderful PowerPoint presentation on the Mojave County website, mojavecounty.us. And if you go to the Public Works and Improvement District, you can watch his video, which has voice with the PowerPoint. And that actually answers a lot of questions that might help people. But again, everyone seems to be very angry about how our improvement district was managed for the water system. And I think my letter explains some of the other things that I had issues with. So does anyone have any questions or want to discuss anything with us? Otherwise, I guess I will just let somebody else have their turn. And I think people maybe mailed in some emails or stuff, so hopefully. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board on this item? Close the public hearing. I think Mr. Latowski can come up because we have confusion here. What we're looking at today is to raise the rates to get enough money to continue to fix what's there. The petition that they're talking about has nothing to do with the rate increase. Also, when the petition goes through, it doesn't have it has something to do with fire flow, but then the board will have to decide if we're going to go ahead and cut a deal with the city of Lake Havasu to charge the residents for the fire protection only, and that's going to be another $50 a month or so. And then ambulance service at that time too. So there's a lot of other additional costs. Mr. Latowski?
Good morning, Chairman Johnson, members of the board. I will keep my comments brief and to the point. I do wish to respectfully impress on the board two items. One, the discussed petition to incur expense as contemplated by the residents of Horizon 6 and this proposal that has been put forward by staff are completely mutually exclusive from each other. The petition to incur expense was a very necessary and diligent action by the community to take steps toward improving, and I stress improving, this 1984 water system to a level of performance that attends to current fire code requirements for fire flow. And it was a necessary response by the district property owners in reaction to the city's action not to provide fire services until the system was improved to such extent. What staff has proposed really is lockstep with both the board as well as staff's exceptionally diligent care of the system as constructed. Staff has found that the existing 32,000 feet of asbestos cement pipe throughout the district, that's about 6 miles of transite pipe, it's aged 36 years old. Industry points to these types of pipes providing for a 75 to 100 year service life. And since the district has maintained IGAs with the city, and this dates back to the early 2000s, it had established two fees. One fee was a maintenance operations fee to fund the O&M, the operations and maintenance of the system, including namely our big dollar item is the electric fee, as well as a maintenance reserve fee, which looks after the replacement of existing as-built infrastructure. Both fees were originally established at $5.75, and in 2013, when staff flagged that revenues were not keeping pace with operating expenses, staff worked with the board, and the board did adopt a change in the electricity maintenance fee. This particular proposal is with regard to the reserve maintenance fee, the replacement of infrastructure. And a product of our the board's 2013 increase to the O&M fee was raising enough funds to replace the booster station. At the time the fee was enacted, I don't have the figure exactly in front of me, but I believe the maintenance funds were down to about $40,000 or so. And as a result of that fee, we were able to grow, the board was able to grow that fee reserve upwards of about $200,000, and for a cost of $182,000 in 2017, we replaced the booster station. That was critical. The booster station is the engine of a car, is the processor of a PC. If it doesn't run, nothing runs, and no water is served, fire flow or just water service delivery. That aside, I'll move forward. And what staff is proposing is a proactive identification. Everything is working just fine right now, but we have a 36-year-old 6-mile pipe system. And utilizing the 1984 engineer's estimate of that system value at $647,000, staff has carefully calculated that the cost of inflation has been about 3.4% annually since that time. So it brings a present replacement value of those water lines at about $2.189 million, just $2.2 million. So staff presents for the board to consider our recommended option, and that is to increase the maintenance reserve fee, which is long sat at $5.75, increase it to $26 per month per customer account, as well as enact a $1 per month per account increase in the fee every calendar year starting January 1st of the year that the fee is enacted. That would in fact raise customer billing by $20.25 per month. But it would allow us to accrue a surplus of maintenance reserve funds to a level where we can take on likely the replacement of the water lines in such a manner as that we would do maybe street by street and approximately every 7 years or so. We'd have to see how the money inflows in, but we would not necessarily wait by any means for us to hit the $2.2 million level. We would systematically take on a series of projects and likely a street at a time. There's namely 5 primary streets in the district. So that is, apologize for the long-winded time there, but that is the proposal in front of the board at this point, just to replace the existing water lines and not to improve the system. That is being diligently undertaken by the community themselves for their own purposes of desiring additional service above and beyond what was originally provided.
Thank you, Mr. Luchowski. Any questions? Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Luchowski. So the petition would not, let me back up. What you're proposing would not increase the pipe size to allow for fire flow?
Chairman Johnson, Supervisor Gould, that is correct. We would aim to replace the asbestos cement pipe with a like-sized pipe. As part of the petition to incur expense, the work to increase the capacity of the system to provide for fire flow pressures would also evaluate the necessity of any line improvements or possibly more so any valves that would be necessary, particularly near the booster station where that flow would undoubtedly be at a substantially higher pressure.
So some of the issues in the petition to incur expense would overlap then over what you're speaking of as far as the rate increase. If they're gonna replace pipe for flow, that would be partly redundant.
Supervisor Gould, I understand the inference about possibly replacing pipe. The petition to incur and those particular improvements would undoubtedly, if move forward, they would undoubtedly be unfolding and most likely in design and construction well ahead of any county activity to replace any water lines in any street. But there is no inference at this time, no definite that the pipes would have to be upsized. It may just be a pressure valve of sorts to maintain the flows at a manageable level as they enter the system, even at the 6-inch configuration.
Okay. My concern is I think if we raise the rates today, we sink their attempt to get a petition signature to actually be successful. Because I think when the ratepayer finds out that their rates were just increased, I seriously doubt that they're going to sign a petition to incur further costs.
Well, Supervisor Gould, you hit it on the head, and that's where both proposals that are out there, while I commented are mutually exclusive, that is the crux of the issue, in that we're taking on, staff is taking on, under their due diligence and recommendation to the board, a plan, a proactive plan to look ahead. It's almost like the county 604 fund with vehicle replacement, to look ahead towards building a fund for the replacement of water lines. But in this case, we do have a competing proposal, and one that the residents deem to be one of need to provide for fire service. So yes, I think you stated that very well. They're mutually exclusive, but yet I can understand the competing costs.
So if, I forget where I'm going. I hate when that happens. Yeah, I lost it. I yield. It'll come back.
I guess the one thing to stress again too is you have the two competing, but we still need to make mention that if the petition goes through to incur the expenses, there will be additional costs in dealing with the city, which is going to be, the minimum is $60 a month from what the city's told me. So that's another decision people will have to make if they sign the petition and put the pumps in to increase the flow. Then there will be a monthly charge addition to the city, which is only for fire protection, not for ambulance protection. Supervisor Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got it back. If we were to postpone this decision today for 6 months to allow the ratepayers in the district to circulate their petition, would that do any harm?
Supervisor Gould, I do not see any undue harm by postponing the board's decision on this particular staff proposal. And actually, Supervisor Chairman Johnson made a point that I would also say we calculated this amount of fee increase to recognize that the city also retains 10.6% of all fee collections, even on behalf of the district. Under a petition to incur expense and what would ultimately be a property assessment, there would be no city involvement. That's purely a county improvement district action. But in this case, anytime we assess fees or increase fees, for example, even our $5.75 fee, the city actually reserves 10.6%. They call it their billing administrative service. So I just wanted to point that out for your information as well, that we actually had to increase it to the proposed $26 a month to account for that 10.6% retention by the city.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
I move that we table this decision. Is table the correct word?
No, continue.
What was it?
Continue.
Continue this for 6 months.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 31, Mr. Temperate, approve the requested budget increase of $14,605. Does anybody have any questions on this? I guess I don't need Mr. Temperate.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould?
I just wanted to confirm that this, the $14,605 was going to be charged to the school district and would not be paid for by the county.
Yes, it is.
I am getting an affirmative from the election director. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 32, discussion possible action, approve termination of a portion of contract 20-B-13-03 on the fleet vehicles.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 33, discussion possible action and reconsideration of item 45. I would move to reconsider item 45 from the Board of Supervisors February 1st, 2021 meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number B is a discussion possible action to adopt and publish redistricting principles. County Manager, do you want to say anything on this? Or Mr. Asplund?
Mr. Chairman, board members, in the interest of time mainly, to ensure that we have a consultant on board who is ready to go when the census data is released. And understanding that the consultant that assisted the county previously in the last round is still available, is familiar with the county, is familiar with the CSA, that's the County Supervisors Association, is assisting other counties in Arizona, well-versed with what the process is and the Department of Justice requires, and finally, understanding in discussion and consultation with the firm that the cost would be less than what it was 10 years ago. We are proposing or recommending to the board to proceed with a sole source in this case. So we are prepared to go when the census data is released. And Mr. Asplund, do you have anything else to add to that? Or our procurement director is here as well.
I have nothing to add. That's not my item.
All right, and this has been run through legal that says it's legal for us to do a sole source on this?
Mr. Chairman, board members, yes, it has been through legal. It's in coordination with legal and with our procurement department and procurement director taking the lead on that as well. And she's here if any board members has questions for her.
Chairman, I'm sorry, if I could piggyback on that as part of the legal aspect of it. This is really largely deferred to the procurement director's opinion. As you know, that we have a procurement code, and above a certain amount, items have to go out for bid. There are exceptions to that, and the exception being if there's a sole source. I know that Supervisor Lingenfelter is familiar with the process as well. The determination of whether to go as sole source or not is up to the procurement director to make that determination. And so it's largely, it's not so much a legal question, it's so much does the procurement director determine whether whether sole source is appropriate in this instance or not. and then you would decide whether her decision is correct or not. Whether you think, not so much whether her decision is correct or not, whether you wish to agree and go sole source or go with and say, no, we still don't want to do sole source, we want to go the other direction.
But we need you to defend that if somebody complains, right?
Absolutely. That would be our position. You know,
Okay.
whatever decision the board makes, if the board wishes to go along with that, then it would be our job to defend that position. You're correct.
Okay. Any questions by board members?
Chairman Johnson.
Supervisor Lingenfeld.
If Procurement Director Acton would be willing to do so, maybe she could share her determination.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. The determination was part of the backup, and I apologize, I actually don't have it here with me today. But ultimately, the determination is on the basis of being able to move forward in a timely factor. We were not aware of the desire to go through an RFP process. Generally speaking, an RFP process takes up to 90 days. And if we were to publish this week, we likely would not have that awarded until mid-May, and that's assuming that we get through an evaluation process in a timely manner. And so we were prepared to move forward on a sole source basis simply to make sure that we did not hold up any other timelines.
Thank you, Tara. And just a follow-up question, the firm in question, they didn't have a cooperative contract or some sort of a state contract available?
At this time, they do not. We actually were hopeful that they might. I think it was Navajo County, I'm sorry, I don't recall, that just recently awarded a contract, but it allowed for cooperative language, but this firm didn't understand the question that was being asked and did not check for cooperative. We did reach out to other counties to find out how they were moving forward. They either have RFPs on the street already or are doing it in-house, or in this case, I'm pretty sure it was Navajo County recently awarded.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If there's no further questions, I would make a motion to move forward with the sole source contract as discussed.
Have a second? Have a motion and a second for discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries. Item number 34 is an update from our health director.
Chairman Johnson, members of the board, I'll start off as I usually do with my numbers. As of February 15th, there have been a total of 18,534 COVID cases in the county to date. 11,916 of those cases have recovered, 518 deaths, 1,801 people hospitalized at some point during their illness. Our average age of cases is 47.7. Average age of deaths is 75.4. The percent of population ever with COVID is at 8.6%. Excuse me. And our case fatality rate is 2.8%. Okay. All right, some trends in our cases and deaths. We've had a decrease of cases over the last 4 weeks, so that's been very pleasant to see. And that's overall in the big 3 cities. Cases are now at levels close to peak in June and July. Deaths have also decreased, which is good to see. There's still a lag in reporting, so just so that you're aware, when we report deaths, oftentimes that might take up to a week for those deaths to actually be reported, and then we report them after that. So sometimes there's that much of a lag compared to cases, which is generally much less than that. And the 7-day rolling average continues to decrease. Cases per 100,000 or per 1,000 population is 9, down from 26.8 the previous week and 59.7 prior to that. So some big shifts for us, which is great to see. There was a question, I know Supervisor Johnson, if you don't mind if I address that question about Bullhead City. Actually, the Bullhead City cases have also been decreasing. There was a question about why Bullhead City was seeing a spike. But generally, as you've seen, some weeks we have a spike in Kingman, other times it's a spike in Bullhead City, other times you'll see a spike in Lake Havasu. It's all about when cases are reported to us, how they're batched, how they're sent to us, and the number of tests being run in each of those communities. So those are all the variables that play into that. And in those particular cases, we really haven't seen, other than initially, going back into that fall session where we saw some pretty dramatic increases in Bullhead City, they've been pretty aligned with the other 3 cities as well. So, okay. All right. I'll give the hospital update. Again, this particular update oftentimes will include trends. We try to present them as trends rather than them being point in time. So, community COVID decline is starting to be reflected in lower hospital usage. Although the ICUs remain at a critical level, we're also starting to see that decrease. So that's been another pleasant thing, seeing pleasant statistic. Staffing shortages are still a concern for a couple of facilities, but that's less so than it was in the past. 0 hospitals report a diversion status as of the 2/14, so that's good. We did have at least 2 facilities on diversion status last week. I'll slow down. Let's see here. Inpatient beds averaged 92% occupied over the week, with 13% of those being COVID positive as of 2/14. In Arizona, 88% of inpatient beds are full, with 26% being COVID plus. So while the inpatient beds being full is of concern, the fact that they're not full with COVID patients is also very important to recognize. Any questions about the hospital status? Okay. So beginning this week, 25 to 50 Mojave County tests per week will be sent to TGen North for sequencing. They're going to be doing this and expanding this service in Mojave County, which is great because we'll be able to see whether or not we have the UK variant or the Brasilia variant within our county. This comes at no cost to us and no effort on our behalf. The labs, they will take the specimens from the labs after they've run the PCR test and submit those to TGen, who will then run those sequencing tests on them and then provide us with information back if there are positives for those particular variants or any others. Those are, just so that you're aware, those are anonymously sent. They're given a number, and they are, between ADHS and the health department, we know who that person is, but nobody else. So I just want to make sure that people understand that when that information is shared, it's confidential. So if we find that any of those variants are in our county, of course, we would be able to share that with all of you, and we would also have that conversation with the positive person. Okay. Any questions on sequencing?
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Denise, if we're only going to share it with the patient if it's the UK version?
Well, it'll be if it's anything other than the standard
Made in
variant.
the USA? Made in China?
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Certainly. Okay, so we'll move on to vaccine, because I know that's of greatest interest to everybody. And let me get some of my notes organized here so that I can get that information to you. All right. So currently, Mojave County is open to all 1A and 1B protective service occupations and 75 years and older, but will expand Wednesday to include 65 years and older education and child care workers. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the timeline for that change, but I can assure you it was based on a risk model and looking at the number of individuals within our county that were 75 plus the amount of vaccine in our community and trying to make sure that they at least had an opportunity, several weeks, to make appointments and try to get that vaccination in. What you also have to consider, of course, is the fact that these individuals don't need just one shot, but they need two. So it's also not just getting in for that first vaccination, that's all well and good, but then the addition of a second vaccination and ability to get that appointment as well. So to date, Mojave County's been allocated 28,700 doses of vaccine. The number of vaccinations to date have been 22,313. We still have, looks like 4 providers that haven't updated their information with us yet, but that's the vast majority of them there out of the 30 in our county. So if you consider the fact that these facilities have not received their allocation for this week, so if you subtract out the 3,000 doses for this week, that would be 25,700. And if you do the math, that puts us at about 86% of the vaccine in arms at this point in time. So if you add in the other 3,000, we're at about 77.7. So we are seeing increases, which is what we want. Our goal is over 80, and we hope to reach that by the end of this week, if not next week. So we should see some changes there. Ultimately, we'll continue to strive to move to increase that amount every week because it doesn't do any good for that vaccine to be on a shelf or in a refrigerator or anything of that nature. We're also trying to work with providers as they schedule activities and events to distribute the vaccine. So, and the importance of that is in our planning. When we ask for their orders, we also ask whether or not they have any specific events or activities that they're planning for the date of that, how many doses they intend to administer on that day. So we are working with them to ensure that they have the appropriate dosage of vaccine to meet those demands, especially as they move forward with second dose appointments. Those are very important that we finish the series and try to do it in a timely manner. And so we are trying to work with those facilities to make that happen. The federal retail pharmacy and federally qualified health center programs were activated effective February 11th by the federal government. There are 9 pharmacies participating in this program in Mojave County. Mojave County is home to 4 FQHCs. And at this time, we do not know when they will actually receive vaccine. We're anticipating in the near future, but we've been notified that at least for this week, we know the federally qualified health clinics will not receive vaccine. We have not received an update about the pharmacies yet. The good news for this is that that vaccine will be provided by the federal government. It's part of their allocation. And we had been providing vaccine to all 4 of those federally qualified health clinics and 3 of those pharmacies, which means that we can redirect our vaccine, our allocation to other facilities to get used more quickly. Any questions about that program or those programs?
It seems like vaccine numbers are dropping instead of picking up. I mean, the amount we're getting.
We've been fairly steady at about that 3,000 a week for the last, I think, 3 weeks. So you're referring to our allocation, Supervisor Johnson,
right.
Chairman Johnson?
Right, because
Okay.
you're saying, well, the feds, we're going to quit doing those, but we don't seem to be picking up very much with the allocations at 3,000 a week. It's going to take us forever because we have the second shots to give also.
Right, exactly. And it is going to take some time. And I know moving into the 65 plus and education and childcare phases will keep us in place in that phase, I believe, for quite some time, trying to give everybody an opportunity within those groups to get their first and second shots.
Chairman Johnson.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Director Burley. I want to talk about the educators. I'm very happy to hear that educators are going to be able to get their shots as of Wednesday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But I want to talk about the schools a little bit, and I want to ask you some questions from a public health standard. Are there any public health reasons why our schools should not be open full-time right now? Have you seen any controlled studies that indicate that our schools, are transmitting this? From a public health standpoint, I mean, why do you think our schools should be open full-time? We need to open our schools.
No, Supervisor Lingenfelter, I understand. And we work very closely with the schools on cases. They follow ADE recommendations, and they also have a school governing board. That school governing board makes decisions for those schools and those school districts, not the health department. Their job is to determine what is the best course of action for those schools and for the schools within their purview.
If the school boards were to contact you as the public health director, would you have any studies or any sort of public health information that would say that the schools should remain closed or go AB schedule or whatever they're doing right now?
I believe it's based on where they're at the moment, right, with cases and so forth. But there are studies available right now that show that schools can reopen if they include mitigation strategies in their processes. So I do believe schools can open safely if they're following those mitigation strategies so that they can protect the students and the staff.
I was hoping you'd say that. Thank you.
By the way, I do believe there may have been a question earlier related to our work with the public schools.
No, that's not.
Were you going to, I'm sorry, Supervisor Gold, were you going to ask?
You can carry on.
Okay. And in any case, we work directly with the schools to provide them with CDC information, ADHS information, and ADE information when we have it. We participate in phone calls with those entities to ensure we're all working off the same sheet of music. And we have never recommended that a school close or a district close, ever. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor?
Denise, during call to the public, somebody mentioned something about the retired medical corps. It's probably not the right name for it, but.
Our MRC.
Yeah, what's that all about?
So our Medical Reserve Corps is a volunteer-based organization that works through the health department. People can sign up for that, and they can volunteer. We go through a background search, and then they complete an application, basically, and then we do a background search on them. And then if they're approved, we move them forward, so they're available to become a volunteer. We do have our planner working with those individuals. We did have some, I believe, working at our event, or the event at the fairgrounds on Wednesday. And as we receive more vaccine, those individuals will be utilized in pods when we have more vaccine than any of our providers can really provide at any given time. In those situations, we would certainly work to actually implement the pod example that we've discussed in the past, where we'll have a large drive-through type event. So far, out of our 30 providers, we usually get more requests for vaccine than we actually have. We do try to, actually we review their current inventory before we make decisions, and we make sure that we're trying to keep everybody to about a week's supply of vaccine to ensure that it gets in the arms very quickly.
The speaker said something about they had been dismissed, and I kind of think it's just we haven't been able to utilize them because of the lack of vaccine.
That's correct.
Is that correct? That is correct.
That is correct. I hope they haven't been dismissed, because we will need them. That will come up.
Mr. Chairman, board members, just to be clear, we planned some of our own county pods or point of dispersion. We have not carried out any of those yet. That has not come out directly, and I just thought I'd clarify it. The reason is, as you heard from Denise, we just have not had the vaccines numbers available to do so. Those were designed to deliver a large number of vaccines in an event. And we have had events in all 4 cities where we continue to coordinate with a given provider, but we have not initiated any of our own. We still have the plans in place, the desire to do so, and hopefully when the vaccine becomes abundantly available, we can get to that point. Currently, we're just working with what we have in the way of vaccine numbers.
Thank you. Supervisor?
I don't know if it's Denise or Sam. Has anyone taken a look to make sure that our county is getting our per capita share of vaccine? That we're not somehow being shorted either nationally or in our own state?
Supervisor Gould, actually, that question has been asked several times of ADHS to have more transparency around that pro rata allocation, and we have not yet received that formula as of yet or that level of transparency.
So we do not, at this time, we do not know.
What, Denise, we probably should share with the board, what's been communicated, Mr. Chairman and board members, is that Arizona is currently getting 300,000 vaccines a week. Arizona has requested 330. Of the 320,000 is taken right off the top to be used by the state for the 24-hour centers that they're holding in the urban areas, and the rest are being distributed to the 15 counties in Arizona proportional to the population in each of those eligible categories, which at this time would be the 1A, 1B, tiers 1 through 4. Thank you.
I had a question on your staffing. Are you running short of staffing? Is it being affected? Is places like Vital Records?
We do. There are places where staffing has been a challenge. Again, you know, we're encountering our own cases within our own entity and our own department. So we generally have staff in backup, you know, in backup positions so that we can integrate them in when needed. Does it put a strain on our staffing? Yes. I mean, I think we didn't come into this pandemic with a bench of a lot of people ready to jump into action. So and I don't think any department does. We run very lean, just as every department does. So we do the best we can in making sure that we can continue providing services and it doesn't impact our services.
Thank you. Supervisor Angus?
I just got a question, and I'm not really sure if it's relevant, but how many amplification cycles the labs are running on the PCR tests? Do you know?
Supervisor Gould, I responded, I think, to you on that question. Do you remember what that answer was? If not, I can go back and I have an email response, so I can certainly provide that.
That would be great.
It came from ADHS. So.
Okay, thank you.
I believe it's 30.
Okay, well,
And I think CDC limited the cycles of amplification, amazingly enough, right after Biden was sworn in.
Coincidence. I also wanted to thank you. I understand that the website is being updated for the vaccinations. I haven't heard all good things, which is always good. It took a while, but I think that we're in that groove and everybody knows what they're, and we're trying to help people. And, you know, last meeting, I was concerned because they were having these things in Laughlin, the vaccinations, but that was taken care of. They were wrong. They had to give it to everybody because it's a federal program. And then they're going to be getting their second vaccinations. Now, does Nevada, their responsibility is to let you and the state know, or does anybody let Arizona know? I would assume.
Are you referring to the second dose?
Well, just the vaccinations, you know, in our numbers, how many people are vaccinated? How does that get included?
We would learn that information actually through electronic medical records and through those systems that are in place that talk. And I'm not sure how those operate state to state, so Nevada to Arizona. I do know that we will see, for example, if a person puts a Mojave County residence down and they go to Maricopa County or some other county to get their vaccination, we will see that.
Okay. So I assume that that's how it goes down, because if someone from Nevada, Laughlin, comes to Bullhead, you have to report it to Nevada, I would assume.
I think we report it as such into ACES and then somehow that information must transfer over to another state, yes.
Okay.
I'm just not familiar with the electronic medical records and how they speak to each other, but there does need to be some communication there.
And I am very happy about the numbers at the hospitals. The way that we follow them on our daily basis, they're really looking much better.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So we've done this before, we're on the other side, and then we have a big spike. I mean, what are the trends saying? I mean, do you think it's when the weather gets nicer and people what are you guys thinking?
Well, I also think, Supervisor Angus, that we're through the holidays, we're through the family gatherings, and we're through the time frame that usually takes us to get on the other side, about a month. So, I also think we've seen a lot of death in the last month and a half as a result of cases, and in those particular situations, I think people may choose to engage in different behaviors as a result of that. They either might choose not to visit with family or friends knowing that there's high case counts, and do more social distancing, or they may even wear masks. It just depends on the person, but it's their personal choice what they choose to do, but they may engage differently based on that.
Okay, speaking of the deaths, there was a time, probably 4 weeks ago, maybe even 2, where they were very high in age. I'd say most of them were 75 plus, unfortunately. Was it cycling through the assisted livings again? Are we okay with that? I mean, I think everyone kind of agrees there's no way of keeping them out of the assisted livings and the group homes. You do your best, but it's just not. So are we seeing, is there any data that shows that that's going down, or?
Yes, it's nowhere near what we saw over the summer. And when we first started seeing cases and they're infiltrating into these long-term and assisted living facilities, I think they have a lot of mitigation strategies in place that are preventing cases. Will it prevent all of them? No. But it does prevent the vast majority of them. They also have testing protocols that they use, and in those cases, based on where we fall in the benchmarks, they are required to test at certain levels so that they can ensure that they're protecting both the employees and those people living there.
Very good.
Our number of cases in long-term care facilities has been much, much lower.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. And I do want to provide one last update, and that is on the, we're trying to get information about the long-term care program that we've talked about, the CDC, CVS Walgreens partnership. At this time, I don't have any information, but we are asking ADHS for some information about what the status is of the facilities within our county. Because as I mentioned before, I believe they've wrapped up their work in the skilled nursing facilities, but the assisted living facilities, there's a large number of those. There's a lot of people impacted by that. And they make 3 visits to each of these facilities so that they can ensure that if they've missed somebody on one round, that they can catch them. So they have sort of that catch-up time. But it is going to take some time for that. And that's, again, another protective factor for those individuals. Our call center, we still have our FEMA staff working in our call center. I just want to reiterate the call center number for those that may be watching. It's 928-753-8665. It's open from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. They will continue to take all phone calls, and they do assist with making appointments. We did get permission from FEMA to allow them to see HIPAA-protected information. We did have them complete a confidentiality agreement with the health department. But those individuals that are calling in can get assistance from us with scheduling appointments. And hopefully that helps either between lack of internet connectivity or just the navigating through some of these websites, which are not always easy to do. Any other questions? I didn't
How
have
far
any other
behind are we in reporting?
reporting of vaccinations.
Our daily reports, they're not daily report, I mean, they're daily reports, but they're not that day. Before we had a lag of weeks, are we now into days where the state notifies us? They get notified the day that they test positive, they notify us, then we have to verify it, and then we have to report it.
Got it. So it's taking approximately, I'm sorry, to get an answer to your question, Supervisor Johnson. If you can give me just a second, I can probably find it on my phone. Of course, it's going to take me a while. I believe it's taking approximately 2 days, 2.5 days. You know what, I don't want to give you incorrect information. So I have an email with all of the information, and I will make sure that I forward it to you, and I can disseminate it to all board members at that point. Okay?
Thank you. Supervisor Angus?
Just to reiterate, Denise, tomorrow, teachers and 65.
Teachers, so educators, childcare workers, and 65 plus can
Thank
start
you.
making appointments.
Anyone else have any questions? Is that all you have, Denise?
It is, yes, sir.
We are adjourned. Thank you.